Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to the ICO for the invitation to present. I have a very simplistic, at least simple PowerPoint for you today, and the reason is that I did a very careful analysis of the agenda, and I determined that this was going to be right after lunch, so I thought just a few simple slides was all the group could handle. Actually, that's all a lie. The reason is that I ran out of time and I valued sleep more than I did making a sophisticated PowerPoint. So, and nonetheless, I hope you'll benefit from the fact that it's not so complicated. As you know, USAID is the primary U.S. government institution for implementing our Overseas Development Assistance Program. We have programs in around 100 countries and across a wide variety of sectors, of which agriculture is only one. As the chairman mentioned, Feed the Future is the Obama administration's new initiative, and what's really important to note or to remember about that is that it is a revitalization of our work in agriculture. I actually started my career in working in agriculture, and in the mid-'80s we had about $1.5 billion of funding to agriculture. By the late 90s, that had dropped to something like 200 million in terms of USAID's funding for agricultural programs worldwide. Feed the Future has been the vehicle by which we have brought that back, and it's now something over $1 billion. So it's a very important initiative in that sense. It focuses on about 20 to 25 low-income countries. It's very much driven by country-determined priorities, very closely aligned in Africa with the CADIP process for setting country investment plan priorities, and is very much focused on smallholders with the ultimate goals of poverty reduction and nutrition. So in Feed the Future, there's a selection process by which our country field offices do their analysis and determine which commodities to focus on. In 4 of those, the first 4 that you see here, coffee has been explicitly selected as a value chain for our work in that country. And then in the others that you see down below, we are also working in coffee, although with a less direct focus. Sometimes we're able to work through a policy project or an input supply project, et cetera, et cetera. The approach is quite similar to what you've heard other institutions articulate this morning. Very focused on smallholder producers. We use a value chain gap analysis approach. What are the proper point or the most productive points along the value chain to design interventions? And then it's everything from building cooperative, connecting to markets, sometimes diversification beyond coffee when that's appropriate, and more it's public-private partnerships. I'll speak a little bit more about the access to finance side in a moment as well. USAID works very closely in a partnership mode. Let me go back, I think I skipped one of the slides is missing, but it's okay. I try to keep it simple. So we are really more and more working in a public-private alliance mode. A few years ago, that was a bit of an afterthought to the way design programs. I think I can safely say that it's now very much integrated into the way programs are designed from the beginning. In the coffee sector, most of the names that you would recognize are partners with USAID in terms of private companies. Starbucks and Keurig Green Mountain have been big ones, but many others as well. Also foundations, and then on the implementing partner side, again, many of the names that you'll recognize: Root Capital, Technoserve, university groups, and a standard range of implementers like Catholic Relief Service or many other groups. In terms of understanding the USAID program cycle, I spared you again from a detailed analysis of all the steps in that cycle, but it's very much, as you've seen in other presentations, representatives in the room, really the best and primary place to engage our field offices in your country is at the strategic planning stage. That's where there's a real opportunity to shape the program and have full engagement with the missions. And then from that, at the program or project design stage as well. I can't stress enough that the earlier you engage, the more opportunity you have to influence the general direction of the programming. And if coffee is important to your country, that's where there's the real opportunity to make sure that there is a focus on coffee. Beyond that, we are a U.S. government agency. We do have to follow this sort of procurement rules of the U.S. government, which have been elaborately developed. Sometimes we think too elaborately developed over the years to ensure a competitive basis for getting grants and contracts. These are some website references that will go up on the website here that you can use. And as I mentioned below, we do have more and more partnership opportunities. The second bullet, the second bullet under the at the bottom, called Development Credit Authority, is quite important. It's a innovative bank guarantee or loan guarantee, I should say, not necessarily bank scheme, that we're using in more and more innovative ways. So just to stress that one for a moment. So what I wanted to do in the last 5 minutes here was just talk quickly about some of the case studies, to use those, or case examples, I should say, to illustrate some of the work we've done. I have two cases that were done at the headquarters level and two that were done at the mission level. Many people in the room, I think, are familiar with the Rwanda situation. The context was the extreme need to generate income-producing activities in the post-genocide environment in Rwanda. Coffee sector was jointly selected between USAID and the Rwandan government as a key area to focus on. And over the space of 12 years, we had a successive wave of projects, in this case with continuous personnel across those projects. Some of you know the name of the person I'm talking about in terms of continuous personnel. Tim Schilling, who now heads World Coffee Research, spent most of that, he spent a full 10 years in Rwanda working across those projects. It's been a very, very valuable program, benefited from really strong leadership in the country, strong project leadership on the USAID side, and as a result, I think those who are familiar with the program will agree that it's had some really major impact. What was important about it as well is that the program activities were not all determined at the beginning, but rather they evolved as Rwanda itself passed through the different phases of need with regard to development of the project sector. In terms of what we're doing currently, everyone is aware of the Arroyo issue in Central America. In response to that, about a year and a half ago, we started to look at where, again, we could most productively intervene. World Coffee Research came forward with a variety of corporate partners already in hand, and we jointly designed an activity, a public-private partnership, that focused on the need or the lack of a pipeline of new varieties, the issue about the very narrow genetic diversity base for new coffee varieties, the supply of seedlings to farmers, and all working in this sort of pre-competitive space where it was fairly easy for the companies to come together. There's about a dozen companies that have come together on that activity. So that's one example of a PPP. The second one here is the root capital activity. Again, the context was the need for long-term finance for renovation of coffee plantations. Root capital has deep roots in developing a combined package of technical assistance and loans to cooperatives. And we paired up with in a very innovative way with some companies. In this case, Keurig Green Mountain actually took a first loss position for the loans. I won't go into the details, but that made the program so easy to buy into. It actually, the loan guarantee component was actually free to USAID, because when Curie Green Mountain took a first loss position, that buyed the risk down to the level where the guarantee is essentially free. So that provides up to $15 million in loans. And then it's accompanied by a public-private alliance or a partnership on the technical assistance side, where we're sharing the cost with private companies. Overall, just on the Roya issue, we now have, I conservatively estimated $12 million, but about 10 projects, probably worth closer to $20 million that are addressing Roya directly now. And then the last activity, just to give again a quick case example, is the Acceso project in Honduras. This I could describe perhaps as a typical Feed the Future program where the local government and USAID jointly determine what the needs are, the priorities, very focused on poverty reduction and nutrition issues, smallholder competitiveness, given the pressures on the Central American Arabicas from the rest of their market competitors. And the project went forward and then tweaked a bit when the Roya issue hit. So those are 4 case examples which just give a sort of sense of how we can work. I think, Mr. Chairman, I will leave it at that. Sorry, didn't flip the slide in time. And be happy to take any questions later. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Thank you very much.